I'm the senior editor at Travel Market Report.
I've had about a 32, 33-year career in travel journalism.
I love cruising for its taster aspect because I love that you can go to so many different places in one itinerary and it's very easy to do.
What's unique and different about Windstar that you feel you really don't get that in other cruises that you've done? Welcome back to Winds of Change on this very special episode. My name is Janet Bava, Windstar's Chief Commercial Officer, and I'm so excited because we're coming live from Miami Beach at Seatrade. And for those of you who don't know Seatrade is one of the largest cruise conferences in the world where all cruise brands get together, our media partners, and a lot of vendors that actually speak with and work with the actual cruise brands. And so with us here, usually on Mondays, we do interviews. And because we like to say we're 180 degrees from ordinary, we've actually turned the interviews around on our friends, our media friends, and who have been very much guests of Windstar for many years, and we've asked them to join us on this podcast. But again, before I actually introduce our first guest here who's with us, I want to actually introduce our president, Chris Prelog, who is back again at our.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. He keeps coming back, and we love having you, Chris. So welcome.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me again. I must be doing something right then, I guess, right? So, but this is really exciting. This is an exciting episode because there's a special friend of us joining us today. So.
Yes, and with that, without further ado, here is James Shillinglaw. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And so we are turning the tables around on you because you are a gentleman who has traveled the world with many cruise brands. Mm-hmm. And if anyone knows cruising, it's you because you know the insides of all the cruise brands that you've traveled with. So before we get started on talking about Windstar, we actually want to talk about you. And so can you tell our viewers here today what you do exactly and what kind of spearheaded your career into the journalism world?
Well, actually, I was covering lawyers back when maybe 32 years ago, and I decided I wanted to cover something I liked. So I got a job with Travel Agent Magazine, which actually no longer exists. And I rose through the ranks, became ultimately editor-in-chief. I left that and started a whole nother publication, and then I left that. And now I started Insider Travel Report in 2018, 2 years before COVID. That was interesting. And so we've been busy doing that ever since. And so surf.
Amazing.
And it was wonderful and really enjoyed it. And then last year we had a great cruise with Chris on the Canary Islands, which I understand was one of your first podcasts when he decided to interview me.
Yes.
And that was, so I said, okay, I guess I'll do that. And it worked out okay.
Yeah, we did well. You did well, actually. So it's like
thank you. They invited me back, obviously.
So this is like the inner circle. If you do well, you come back, right? So if you don't see me in subsequent podcasts, I probably made a mistake.
That's it. I'm history. I left on the cutting room floor, right? That's it.
That is not true. We're joking. I just want to say that. But yeah, so you definitely are the inspiration. So of course, as for those of you who do not follow Chris yet on Instagram, I hope you do because I know I was on board and had to get off the ship, and all of a sudden I saw an interview come up on my social media feed, and it was of James Shillinglaw, and I said, yes, absolutely, we need to do this. We actually need to start interviewing our friends in the media world because you all have so much insights. You all have a very fresh perspective into what cruising and travel and what both our travel advisors who sell us and the guests who sail with us, what they're looking for in their next vacation and how to describe what it is that they can experience with Windstar.
No,
and,
absolutely.
And so with that, so your first cruise was on the Windsurf, and can you tell us a little bit about what your first impression was and what you felt that really set Windstar apart back then? And
well, that was a long time ago. This is one of my first ones. This is I think Chris was probably working for Windstar back then, and then I did another one that I really remember well because the first time I met you, we were doing a cruise from Singapore to Hong Kong.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we all met together,
Yes.
and it was a marvelous cruise. The first time I've done Asia, so I've done that one. And then, of course, when you did your new ships, you lengthened the ships. We did one out of St. Martin. sort of during COVID, which was an interesting time as well.
Restart, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I've done a few Windstar cruises, and then obviously we're talking about the Canaries, the most recent one. So.
And what do you think sets Windstar apart from all the other cruises that you've done? What's unique and different about Windstar that you feel you really don't get that in other cruises that you've done?
Well, it's certainly a more intimate cruise. You have two different types of cruising you can do with the motorized and the sailing. I like both. You have great cuisine. I think the cuisine, and I date from long ago, and the cuisine was good, not great. And now it's really great. I mean, I enjoy all your restaurants, your specialty restaurants, everything. It's really done an amazing job, and I know your culinary people very well. And they don't like to have bad food on board. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and thank you, Chris, for that, because we know we get a lot of comments to how much the food at Windstar has really changed. And we've had Peter Tobler on board, by the way.
Peter Tobler is a good friend of mine, and he's the only guy. If I didn't like the steak, he said, "You're going to send it back." It's okay. It's okay. But he said, no, we're sending it back.
I love it. So obviously the food is amazing. You know, you've done really amazing destinations, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about Canary Islands, because that's a new destination for us, and that's something that's very unique. So you all were talking as you were interviewing Chris outside a little bit about your experiences that you did in Canary Islands. So I would love our listeners and viewers to get a little bit of a glimpse as to your conversation outside with Chris.
Well, you know, this was an amazing cruise. It was your President's Cruise, and thank you for inviting me on that one. It was the first time in Canaries for me, and we also did Madeira. So in the Canaries, though, it is Europe's Hawaii. It's a volcanic island. It's amazing. We went up to volcanoes. We did cultural stuff. It was the shore excursions, and you were there too. So, you know, we had an amazing time. And it's just a very different kind of thing that I didn't expect. Yeah. And then, of course, you go to Madeira, and Madeira we had this crazy sled that we went down the mountain on, and they have, I would call them gondoliers or whatever they are. They're just smoking cigarettes and guiding you down as you're sliding down on a sled on the pavement.
So you're in the streets.
You're in the streets, and it goes to the side, it goes to this side, and you're like, are we going to tip over? No, you're not going to tip over. But that was an amazing. It made me want to go back and see Madeira. And really, I'd love to go back and see more of the Canaries, because we had such a great time there. And it was really one of these things that I guess I didn't know what to expect. Yeah. So that was the thing. And I don't know if you had been there before, but
I've actually been, because raised in Europe, in Austria, actually, Canary Islands are a popular vacation destination. And so I've spent my childhood there, a couple of islands for summer vacation and so on. But what I think the Canary Islands have as well is that Spanish culture existing
and
there.
Food.
And the food is amazing because of it, right? And the history is there as well. So I really like the whole combination of it. You get to see very much. You can be very active. You can go in the wagons rolling down the hill. You can run a tuk-tuk around the islands. Or you can just go to the beach. Or you can go to, really interesting churches and places of
well, you're going up active volcanoes.
We went up a volcano
and you can see those hot rocks were and we held the hot rocks for a second. It was really, that was an amazing excursion. We're going up around the mountain. So it was for me, and you grew up and went to there as on vacation, but for me, I'd never been there, and I just say in many ways it was as good, if not better, than Hawaii.
And you can fly direct from New York to Las Palmas now. United offers a direct flight, so it's easy to get to now as well from the East Coast, and it's definitely something our guests should be trying out, and we are setting obviously the Windship up to be there in the winter.
Oh, the Windship's going to be there. Okay.
And there's a little bit of wind there, so it's for the sail ship. It's going to be
it should be
really
marvelous.
well.
It should be marvelous. I loved the ship we were on was amazing, because it was one of your stretch ships. And we had amazing time. I still remember the time though that I got to go back to the Caribbean when we were just coming out of COVID, and we were trying the first of the stretch ships. And unfortunately, we couldn't go many places because of the COVID situation. So I went upstairs, and they are always trying to, you got to try a spa appointment. And so I booked 3 spa appointments and 3 acupuncture appointments.
Okay.
And I just spent my time going to acupuncture and spa.
Yeah, that's a good way of spending time on a ship.
And then I ate.
Yeah.
So what was wrong with that?
Yeah, no, that's a
Who
perfect way
needs
of-
to go anywhere?
Yes.
And I love that you actually mentioned the spa. We haven't really spoken about the spa.
Oh, you put
on
in
the
a brand
podcast.
new spa. It's
Yes,
amazing.
and you did you try the thermal beds?
Yes,
and
I
the,
did.
And the
I-
sauna and the steam rooms.
I did everything I could. I mean, it
Yes.
was really, I really, because we were just going on to try out the new ship, the new stretch, and we were supposed to go somewhere, but we didn't end up doing that. We
No.
went back to St. Martin, and we were there to experience the ship, and just experiencing the ship. You would think on a small ship like that you get bored, but we had a marvelous time.
Well, and to put the marina out and jump into the water.
Everything.
I mean, it's still so much to do on a small ship, even if you don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
so
it's a
so
really
now
good
I've tried acupuncture. That was it was I don't know if it worked or not, but
It worked definitely.
You came back very relaxed.
I
and-
came back very relaxed on that.
Yeah, and to think actually, we do have guests who book our transatlantic sailings, and sometimes it's 5, 6, 7 sea days, and that's exactly what they tell us. It's beautiful to be able to have an itinerary which is jam packed. Right, they're in the Caribbean, and then our ships head over to Europe in the spring, and they're like they love the 14 days at sea. Sometimes
I can see
and just relax. They read all their books, they catch up on work, and they just catch up in their spa appointments and all their acupuncture because you do need several sessions for it to actually work.
And
So that's
were
great.
on a
You did more
small
than
ship,
one.
But your suites are and your cabins are amazing. I mean,
Yes.
the ones, the renovated ones you have, and they're all nice. But the new ones in the center of those ships are just outstanding.
And let's talk about that because we actually haven't spoken. We always talk about so much the destinations, but we said stretch several times. So for those listening in, Chris, maybe you want to talk about what we did in the middle of the pandemic on 3 of our ships, not 1, 2, but 3 of our ships.
Yeah, so it was a very exciting time because we set out to cut the ships in half, so the ships, and extend them with an 84-foot section. And the plans were all in place. And then, as you mentioned, COVID was hitting in. And so we were doing that during the COVID times. So we had the ships out of service for a period of time. And the Italian shipyard from Fincantieri did a really good job cutting the ships and creating that new section and building it up. But what was really important to us was that it was seamless. So when we went through this, we wanted to make sure that as a guest or when you're sailing on these ships go forward, that everything looked new, everything is seamless. And I think, James, you and I spoke a little bit about it. It's like we're not just going to have new teak in the area where there's the new section.
No,
we're going to
no,
have
not at all.
new teak throughout.
You had new restaurants, new spa, new cabins. There was a major section of that.
It's major renovation, even on the 2 previous sections, so to speak. And that really gives this fleet a new ship feel. And when you walk on board, and I've spoken to many guests who've sailed before on those ships, which were beautiful, but now they're in a different category. So all of you who've sailed on the Star class before the stretch, I urge you to try them out now because I think they're really a nice update and a nice improvement over what they were. So yes, there's a lot on offer to our guests. And in fact, there's a lot we also did for our crew areas. We wanted to make sure that the crew also has new areas. So we added, we renovated the entire crew restaurant. We added a new crew bar. We have added a full-on crew gym. We renovated all our crew corridors. And that was really important to us, too, is that our crew has nice living spaces.
And your crew is great. They incredible service. And it really was all the cruises I've been on at Windstar, I've been really impressed.
Yeah, we were very pleased to have such an amazing, loyal group of people coming back to our ships. Yeah, super humbled.
Now the suite, did you see the suite that becomes up to a 3-bedroom?
I didn't see that one. But
Okay, so we have a suite on board, James, that actually is the owner suite, but you can actually extend it and purchase the second room, the stateroom right next to it, which is another suite, and then the third one as well. So you have an entire family quarter right in the middle center
I think
of the
that's
ship.
where Chris was. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'm sure.
He didn't invite me in. I don't know.
Oh,
What can
no.
I
Okay,
say?
we're going to have to bring you back. So I know you definitely, we talked a little bit outside of the Star Seeker, so we're going to have to figure out, we're going to have to get you a better suite.
Well, that's
right?
the new ship, the Star Seeker, which we're looking forward to this year. Right?
Yes,
which
yes.
is going to be an amazing ship. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I know the ship from another line, but you're gonna. It's so great that you're getting more ships and so you can go more places.
Well, and I can absolutely tell you that this ship feels like Windstar because of everything that you all have talked about before. And now also, we're taking the ship and we're making it Windstar, which I think is also very incredible. And Chris loves to talk about that, right?
Yeah. No, so Starseeker coming out at the end of this year in 2025 will really feel 100% like a Windstar ship. Well, first of all, our crew will be on board. So it will be what our guests are used to, what you have seen, that our crew and the whole atmosphere around that will be there. But the ship will feature, a bow jacuzzi, will have a aft marina for water sports, will have a really beautiful spa, will have nice updated public rooms and like a star grill. So there will be all the features our guests are accustomed to in the Star Class.
And it's going first to Tahiti, right? Is that
I was putting that out there. That was sort of not yet. It hasn't come through.
Oh, okay. Well, can we break news here?
Yeah. But we will go to a fan favorite, as I call it, from our guests. Is we will go to Alaska, and we will.
That's another.
And we'll go to Japan and Southeast Asia, and based on the demand and the guests are being excited about it, we're seeing that, and it's great. That
I think going to Alaska with Windstar would be a very unique experience. I've done large ship cruises to Alaska. They're great. I've done some small ship cruises, also great, but I think the way you do that would be interesting.
Yeah, that sort of integration of soft expedition, right? So it's not true hardcore expedition, but it's also not just sailing by.
Yeah.
You get into zodiacs, you get to see the wildlife, you get to see the beautiful environment of Alaska. I think Windstar does it just in a niche there in a slightly different way, and I think our guests really appreciate it.
Well, it goes with your completely different, out of the ordinary.
Yeah, exactly. 180 degrees from ordinary.
I love that. Well, we are coming to the end of our podcast, and you have been a phenomenal guest, and I hope that you've enjoyed this because we definitely would love to welcome you back. But before we go, we'll let you ask us a question. How about that? I think we've been grilling you with questions and asking you lots of questions, and just wanted to put it out there. If you have a question for Chris or I, here's your chance.
Well, I just finished my own interview with Chris. But I haven't asked you any questions.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so I'll get on the hot seat.
You've been now with Windstar for a number of years, and what is your favorite cruise on Windstar?
I have to say that I've now been on this ship twice during the winter season, and she is a phenomenal ship, and she is, one of our top-rated ships at this time, and I would highly recommend. My favorite so far has been the Winter Med Cruise, and I've done both now Rome to Barcelona in December in the Mediterranean. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's during the holiday season. I love, love, love that cruise, and now I've done Venice to Rome through Dubrovnik. And I mean, I was in January in Dubrovnik.
Oh, you're right. That's off season and you don't have the crowds.
Amazing. And so I love that. And so, so I'm actually coming up to my 2-year anniversary here as Windstar. Time flies when you're having fun. It's been a blast. I feel so blessed. And, not only do I get to have partners like you that we've been friends for such a long time, but I get to work with wonderful people like Chris and everyone here in the room that you are not seeing. But it is a fabulous brand. And we hope that you have been inspired today by James. And so if you have any questions for James, let us know in the comments because we will definitely be bringing him back. Thank you, James. I know you have, I think, over 30 interviews scheduled.
I got a lot of interviews here, yeah. Maybe not as much as some conferences, but this is a big one.
Yes.
Seatrade is always an interesting, great conference for cruising.
And thank you so much for spending some time with us. And for our viewers here, they get to learn from you. And we appreciate you coming to the hot seat here at Winds of Change. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you, James. Thank you for being here with us.
Bye-bye. Welcome back to the second segment of our episode here at Winds of Change. I am coming to you live from Seatrade. We're still here in Miami Beach. And with us today, we have actually someone very, very special who has usually interviewing us. And yes, Chris is still here. Chris, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
And so with us here today, we have the wonderful, beautiful Dory. Hi, Dory.
Hi. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, so we're so excited to have you here. And as you know, we called you up and you usually, have us scheduled for an interview. You have lots of questions for us here at Windstar Cruises. But we did something a little different and we said, actually, Dory, would it be okay if we interviewed you? We think you're such a well-traveled, journalist and you have such a fresh perspective. I love following you on social media. I love your posts and you always have some really great thinking and thought starters. And so,
Thank you.
yeah. So I said, you know what, you would be a great guest here for our podcast. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate, the chance to talk about my thoughts, and I have a lot of thoughts about the cruise industry and cruising, which I love. So
Yeah.
thrilled to be here.
So before we get started, can you tell our viewers here today a little bit about yourself and what got you started in this wonderful career of journalism?
Oh, my story is very long and winding, so I'm going to try and keep it really short. So I'm the senior editor at Travel Market Report. I have been in the travel industry since 2007, though I had a little bit of time in 2000 and 2001 when I worked for a paper called Leisure Travel News. I don't know if you remember that way back. It was a Miller Freeman publication long time ago. They went out of business when the airlines started cutting commission and all the travel agencies. But I used to be a New York City public librarian, and long story short, I found my way back into the travel industry, and I started a travel trade in 2007, and then went to Cruise Critic in 2012.
Oh, wow.
So I developed a real cruise expertise at that point, and then came back to the trade side to Travel Market Report in 2021. So have a very deep understanding and knowledge and appreciation for the cruise industry. So.
Amazing. That's an amazing, and I know you said that very quickly, but that's quite the career.
Yeah.
And so Cruise Critic, let's talk about that because, Chris and I were talking to you a little bit before you joined. And one of the things that we feel is, really why we're here at Seatrade is we're all here to talk cruise.
Yeah.
So can you tell our viewers if they've never taken a cruise, why they should consider a cruise?
Cruising is, there's so many things you can say about cruising. I love cruising for its taster aspect. I love cruising for a lot of reasons, but I love the taster aspect because I love that you can go to so many different places in one itinerary, and it's very easy to do. You don't have to, there's the travel aspect of getting from place to place is taken care of it for you. You don't have to worry about it, and while you're traveling, you are maybe listening to a lecture, you are maybe going to trivia, you are maybe reading a book and relaxing. Like, you don't have to worry about the travel aspect of it. But the taster aspect of it, so being able to go to different places in one itinerary, and you can see which places really speak to you and which places, not that they don't speak to you, but which places you want to go back to. And I can think of numerous places that the first time I ever went there was on a cruise ship and then went back for a land stay. Barcelona, Dubrovnik, a couple, I can't think of any others off, but I know there are more. But there's just so many places that you can see and be like, this is such an amazing place, I want to come back. And then also the congeniality, is that the right word? Yeah. Of a cruise ship, of meeting not only the other passengers, but meeting the crew and getting to know the crew and hearing their stories, just gives it this wonderful feeling of just friendliness. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful way of seeing the world.
It's almost like you travel with a community and like-minded people.
Yeah.
And so you're having really interesting conversations about your passion, which is travel.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, as you say, it's so true. So it's such an easy, comfortable way to taste something, to say, oh, yeah, that spoke to me, or maybe that didn't speak so much to me. But you're not investing a whole week then, right? You're going to get more out of it from that. I like that approach very much.
Yeah.
And I do love that as well, but I will give you a fun fact. As you were saying that, all I can think about was our conversations in the office. I think there's lots of places, like, for instance, Chris, when we were planning our itineraries in the office, Chris is like, why don't we go to the Canary Islands? I went there as a child, and I loved it because he grew up in Europe, and we should go there too, right? And we get to introduce, like you said, people, like, places that Europeans have been traveling there for years. We're going to the south of Italy and Calabria soon. And Europeans have been going there and traveling there for years, but now we get to take people from North America there. And I think that's a beautiful thing as well.
And I also think one of the great things about WinStar, about cruising and WinStar, is there's certain places that really are best seen by cruise ship. So Greece, let's say, the Mediterranean, it's best seen from the water. And so it's another way of seeing the world. And so that's just another reason why you should I mean, I think you should do both. And Alaska, and I know Windstar is going back to Alaska. That the best way to see it is by water.
Love that.
To approach and to see the glaciers by water, and that you, in some ways, you can't even do it by land. It would be very difficult to do by land. So that's another thing that I think is important to remember about cruising.
Yes. Now, both of you, Dori and Chris, you are both social media influencers, I will tell you, because, and I'll tell you why. So we all know Chris is a social media influencer on Instagram. But Dori, you mentioned you work for Travel Market Report at this time, and you're actively, speaking to travel advisors, guests, and to us, cruise brands about what we need to be doing. We all have an obligation to market ourselves in a very accurate way so that you, the viewers that are planning your travels, you can select the cruise brand for you. As Chris loves to say, there's a cruise brand for everyone. One of your recent posts, I mentioned it in our first episode with Diana. I talked about your post that you said, authentic experiences, and everyone says luxury and authentic experience. So can you talk a little bit about what you learned from that little, thought starter, and how does WinStar fit in to that?
So I have always had an issue with overused words in marketing because they stop meaning anything. And luxury, authenticity is joining it. It wasn't originally, but it's joining that. But luxury is so overused, and it has so many different meanings to different people, because you could have somebody from a working class background who saves up to go on a mass market cruise, I'm not going to use any names, and gets to have lobster. That's a luxury experience for them. For them, they're going to call that luxury. Somebody else is going to take a Windstar cruise to Alaska, where they're on a smaller ship and can get up closer to the glaciers and visit some of the smaller ports, and that's a luxury experience. And then you have other ones where you're going to have the 1,000 whatever Egyptian cotton sheets or whatever, and that's a luxury experience. So if any cruise line comes out and says, we're a luxury cruise line and you're going to come have a luxury experience, you haven't said anything.
Right.
It means nothing. So I think it's more important for cruise lines to be marketing the actual experience that people are going to have, the things that they're going to do. And you can mention things like maybe it's a small group size or a small ship, because that will probably mean luxury to somebody else. To somebody else, that might mean boring. Like they might want a large, so if you really want to find the right passenger for the right cruise ship, you need to be talking about the actual experience and not just using words that, one, have different meanings for different people, and two, when they become so overused, they don't mean anything anymore. So,
I remember being in a tram in Orlando at the airport and hearing the words, "Oh, welcome to Orlando, where we provide you an authentic experience." There's nothing authentic about Orlando. It's all man-made city. And so I completely, as a marketer, I commend you for that. And I know Chris, who's been in operations world all the time, I know you all talk about what is luxury and how can we deliver a WinStar authentic experience to our guests. It doesn't feel like anything else.
Yeah, and as you said, really rightfully, luxury means, so many things to so many people. I mean, you mentioned some really good examples, but also I think these days, particularly as busy as we all are, and as how fast-paced this world is moving, is luxury to me is also time, having time with one another, having time to actually, get to know something new, get to know our crew, our fellow travelers. I think that's luxury now as well, because it's a personalized experience, and so many guests appreciate that, particularly, who sail with Windstar and on the smaller ships. So yeah, I fully agree with you. Luxury is completely overused and doesn't really describe anything. And so I think kudos to you, Janet, for really doing this podcast to describe Windstar and the experience, and have really interesting guests invited to actually talk a little bit about cruising and how Windstar falls into it. And yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's luxury, and this is going to resonate with both of you all. being in Tahiti, having a cyclone coming our way, and having an incredible captain and people on board who redirected us to go and see the Marquesa Islands. And so I would love to bring that up for a second because Dory was one of our great friends and journalists who were on board with us when we did the original mystery cruise in Tahiti. And so can you tell us a little bit about that and how you felt? Because I mean, that's important because there's many cruise brands to choose from. There's many small ship cruise brands to choose from, especially now in Tahiti and all over the world. But what I felt, I was not even a year into the organization. And to me, that was when I truly realized that, who WinStar was. And that it was, when times go, the way that you don't want it to go, or when the challenges come your way and how you, address a challenge, I think people are defined by that.
Yeah. There were so many things about the way WinStar handled that cruise that were commendable. I mean, you could start with the sort of biggest, which was relocating us to the Marquesas, being able to have the relationships in place that whoever it was could get on the phone and be like, can we get to the Marquesas, and not just get to the Marquesas, have an entire community come out and perform for us and have a potluck dinner and, So on the one hand, there was that, the deep ties to be able to relocate us away from danger and not just out to sea, which is what so many cruise lines would just be like, okay, we're just going to go out into the water and get away. But no, we went to the Marquesas Islands. So there was that. The open communication, which is another thing, you don't always see that when things are going wrong. You don't get to hear what's being dealt with and what's being trying to done. And we had, the captain came on every night, I think it was, to say, here's what's happening, here's what I'm thinking about, here's what we're trying to do. And he was even available, you could tell he was stressed out, but if you wanted to stop and ask him some questions, he was there and he was open to talking to you. So the open communication, which people appreciate, you don't want to be kept in the dark. You want what is happening, where are we going, what's going on, and if nobody's telling you, it creates a different vibe. Instead, it was completely open communication, and everybody knew what was happening and what we were hoping for. So there was that. The excursion guy was just I am going to find us stuff. He was working his tail off. There were so many things that were commendable about how that was handled, that it was so impressive. And it definitely was for anybody who was on that ship, I can't believe anyone would be like, I don't want to sail with WinStar again, because you got to see at the very worst, here's what WinStar will do for you. And now, I trust WinStar. My husband and I are going back to Tahiti this summer on WinStar so we can actually see the Society Islands, since we didn't really get to see the Society Islands. So now we're going back. But with WinStar, because, one, we had a great experience, and we've had done another, had been our second WinStar. We already knew we liked WinStar. But we know that WinStar is going to take care of us. We know WinStar has the deep ties to the community. WinStar for us is this, that showed us that WinStar was the right choice for us to do our vacation in Tahiti, so.
It was a really interesting trip, though. Right?
It was fascinating.
Because it's nobody knew where we were going, right? Nope. And in a way, that anyone who's traveled, and this a lot as well, is travel is changing on you sometimes. Mm-hmm. You just don't know when and how, but sometimes it just goes in a different direction, literally. And this was the case with that too. But it's, to me, at that point in time when everything was up in the air and we were debating, it's the sense of adventure which came out from it, and what actually the true meaning of travel used to be, right? Mm-hmm. Where you could, where you just enjoyed learning something new, seeing something new you weren't anticipating. That came out really well with that group as well. That was something very special because, nowadays there's a lot of planning about, okay, I got to be at 6 o'clock here, at 9 o'clock there, and do on Tuesday this or that. This was 180 degrees from that. You didn't know what was happening on Tuesday.
Right.
But something happened, and it was beautiful. And I agree with you. The team on the Star Breeze and the ops team, they did a fantastic job pulling this together on very short notice. As you know, for planning a cruise, it takes 2 years to put it in place and have it organized. Just how it's been done in the industry. But to do it in 2 days. It's like the team did an amazing job, and they all deserve the credit on that.
Yeah.
They do. And I love what you said, Chris, on the sense of adventure. I think our guests do have this sense of adventure about them. And we know, for instance, we have Mother Nature. She has always her plans. And so what's wonderful is when you're in a hotel and you're in an all-inclusive destination, if weather is coming poorly at you, you're stuck there. Right.
Yeah.
And so with our ships, we get to navigate and move around and avoid the bad weather. And you know over the weekend, we had a guest, we have our ship, the surf going, and there's also a bad weather approaching. And so our guests we have to arrive, in Cadiz. And so I had 2 guests come to me and say, we're extending our trip to Barcelona because I've just changed my flight. And, since instead of going on a bus from Cadiz to Lisbon, I'm actually just going to, change my flight and head to Barcelona. And this sense of adventure, this flexibility that our guests have, and in this world where everything is so structured and we all are, working, or even if you're not working, you have, bills to pay on a certain date. And this flexibility that we allow, I think that's what we love. And we love to attract guests that have that sense of adventure.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because you never know, right? Mother Nature always has her plan.
No. I mean, in that one, 3 cyclones. I mean, that, that was crazy.
Yes, I love that. So we've talked about that, but you talked about cruising overall. Would love to also get your perspective, and thank you very much for coming back and joining us in Tahiti with your husband. When you have journalists who have options of where they can go and they come back to WinStar to do their actual personal vacation, that's really special. So thank you, Dory. We value that. What else do you feel for viewers here in describing WinStar? They're trying to, they know where they want to go, but they're just trying to see if WinStar is right for them. What else do you feel sets us apart?
So one is the size, and I know that there are other small ships, but for sure, size is a part of it. So, if someone, I get the question all the time: what's the best cruise ship? Where, what cruise ship should I choose? And like, what is it you want? So I'm, reaching an age, where I still like the big ships, but there are a lot of times now I want a smaller ship. I do want a smaller ship. I want something more intimate. I want something quieter. So I love the size of WinStar ships. They're just, and I have not been on a sailing ship. I've only been on the yachts, but regardless, they're still small ships. So I like the size of the ships. I love the crew on board. I love being able to talk to them, get to know them, for them to get to know me. And again, when it's a smaller ship, it's easier for them to do. I love, again, there's a sort of extrovertedness to the passengers who tend to be on board. People want to get to know other people. People want to talk to each other, which makes it for a much more pleasant experience. I love the excursions that WinStar does. I tend to be very driven when I choose cruises for vacation. I tend to be very driven by destination and by the land offerings. And so I love the excursions that are offered. The cruises that I've happened to have done with WinStar, I've done Alaska and I've done Tahiti, doing Tahiti again, which have just like the amazing options for the excursions and things that you can either physically do, hiking, snorkeling, kayaking, things like that, or if you want to do something that's more cultural and you want to get to know the communities and stuff. So I love the variety of excursions. I love the comfort of the ship. I mean, it's a very, very comfortable ship, but also I'm not a formal person. I'm wearing sneakers right now. I'm not
glittery green sneakers. If you haven't seen, I'm wearing some glitter too, by the way.
Yeah, you have to have some glitter,
of course.
But I mean, I'm not a very formal person, so I don't want to be. I want to be on a small ship, but I don't want it to be a stuffy ship. I want it to be a more casual environment. So I love that aspect of WinStar. They're just things that appeal to me as a cruiser, or as a person, and what I want to get out of vacation. But yeah, the things I think that truly set WinStar apart are the ships themselves, the size of the ships, the crew, the land programs, and the destinations. I love the destinations that WinStar goes to.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, the absence of formality has an attraction to lots of people out who are thinking about cruise think it's very formal. It's two seatings and it's wearing jackets and ties and so on. And that's just not true for WinStar. No. You can be yourself, and you can be as busy as you want or
Right.
as relaxed as you want,
Yeah.
right? You can enjoy the ship's amenities or go and explore each and every single stop. So I think that's the option side of it is really interesting too.
Yes. And so in today's day and age, we all have a lot of technology and access to information, but you as I and we at WinStar, we're big proponents of the travel agency community. And I've also seen you post a little bit about, AI and technology and why we should, even in this world of access and information, still use a travel advisor today. So would love to really, hear from you because you talk to a lot of travel advisors and guests who use travel advisors. Why today they should still be using their travel advisor to book a Windstar cruise?
I am a fierce advocate
Yes.
of the travel advisor community, and AI can never get to know you in the way that a travel advisor can, and truly what are the things that you appreciate and want from a vacation. And AI can't get on the ships the way that the travel advisors can and experience them for themselves, so they know, because sometimes getting on the ship, so there might be two different ships where they're both sort of casual and ties aren't, required, but they might have a slightly different vibe. There just might be, one might be more extroverted, one might be more introverted, where the passengers want to talk or don't want to talk. A travel advisor can go on board and will feel that vibe, and now they know when they're talking to the client, this is the right one for them, and there's no real words to describe the differences, but they feel it. AI can't do that. It's never going to be able to do it. Travel advisors just have the experiences. They invest in themselves to go and experience products, to learn about things, and not just the ships. But let's say if they know what's going on in Tahiti, they can be like, when you're in this port, this is what you should do. When you're in this port, this is what you should do. But and don't go buy pearls here, but buy pearls there. So travel advisors just have the experience and then the empathy and the connection with their clients to be able to match the two together in a way that AI will just never be able to do. Just can't. I mean, it's.
And
that
if I
simple.
may add to that, when something goes wrong, who are you going to call?
Yeah, well,
Not an
yeah.
AI bot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can only give you a guidance on what to do.
Right.
But the person who's gonna, go and be your best advocate and tell you and guide you and call us and say, hey,
Yeah.
we
gotta
need
do right.
Yes, exactly. That it's gonna be your travel advisor. So I
Yeah.
love that.
I agree.
So Dory, we've been asking you a lot of questions, and so we would love to now give you the opportunity to ask us a question as we're coming here at the end of our segment. And so I know I did give you a little bit of a heads up to say, yes, you will be getting to ask us a question here at Seatrade, so I'm a little bit nervous now.
So I'm very inspired by when we were on the Tahiti cruise and I got to sit down with Chris and ask some questions. And I asked him about new ships coming up, and he very coyly, no, I don't know anything about new ships coming up. And then a couple of days later, WinStar announced new ships. So I'm going to ask Chris, what can you tell us about the new ships that we haven't heard yet?
The new ships you haven't heard yet. That's a very, very good question. Well, I will say that we are very fortunate that we have an ownership who is really looking for growth, and we are obviously now, and Janet and the entire ops team, they're very busy on filling the new ships and getting them into operations. But that doesn't mean that we are not looking.
Right.
And so I can't have yet any concrete plans shared with you all there, but we are a brand which is growing. And that's super exciting because, as you know, cruising is such an amazing way of traveling the world, and such a small piece of the total travel, industry as a whole. And so I think we want to be a slightly bigger part of it, and I think you need to stay tuned on that.
That's amazing. I love
He's
that.
so good at avoiding the question.
I know.
Learn from the best, right?
I was like, what is he going to say? What is he going to say?
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure to have you here, Dory. You're such a delight. We really thank you for joining us. I know you have a lot of interviews planned today, so thank you for allowing us to interview you.
Absolutely. Thrilled to be here. So thank you for asking me. I love hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
Like it's such really great people, great company. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Dory. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everyone. Bye-bye.